Ethan had always been a creature of habit. His life was simple, comfortable even, with nothing too extraordinary to disrupt his routine. He spent most of his days working at a small tech company and his nights indulging in video games. The world outside his apartment seemed like a distant blur, one he was happy to leave behind as he lost himself in pixels and code. That night, as he sat in front of his computer screen, an unfamiliar feeling crept over him. It wasn't a fear or even discomfort, but something else, something unsettling. The room around him felt colder, and the hum of the computer, usually so soothing, now seemed distant, muted, as though the world had shifted. He shrugged it off. Maybe it was just exhaustion from the long hours he had been putting in lately. As his eyes scanned the screen, he noticed the time, 11:46 p.m. He had meant to head to bed earlier, but the game had sucked him in. Ethan let out a sigh, muting his headset. That's when it happened. A brilliant flash of light, so bright and sudden that it blinded him for a second. He shielded his eyes instinctively, his heart racing as his body tensed. He blinked repeatedly, trying to clear the afterimages in his vision. The light was intense, but it wasn't just the brightness. It was the sheer weight of it. The air around him seemed to pulse, like the room itself had shifted into another dimension. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he glanced around the room. The light gradually dimmed, but it left behind an eerie glow that cast strange shadows across the walls. The hum of the world, the noise of the city outside his apartment, all seemed to vanish. Silence. Total, profound silence. His gaze snapped back to the center of the room. There, standing before him, was a woman. She was beautiful, almost unreal in her appearance. Her long, dark hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall, and her eyes, those eyes, were an otherworldly shade of violet. But it wasn't just her beauty that took Ethan's breath away. She was naked, and not just slightly uncovered, completely exposed. His heart raced and his mouth went dry. He stared, frozen in place. This wasn't happening. Was he dreaming, hallucinating? Had he fallen asleep at his desk? The woman didn't seem to notice Ethan's shock. Instead, she looked around the room as if everything was perfectly normal. Her expression was calm, almost bored, like she had walked into a room she had visited 100 times before. "Well, this is unexpected," she said in a voice that was melodic, like a distant song, but with an authority that immediately struck Ethan. There was a power in her tone, a presence that seemed to fill the room. What?" Ethan managed to stammer. His brain was still trying to catch up with what was happening. The words he had intended to say just seemed to fall flat. "I am Zara," the woman said, looking directly at him. "I'm sorry for the intrusion. My teleportation system malfunctioned. I was trying to reach a different location, but I ended up here. I didn't expect to land in a room like this. Are you the one known as Ethan?" Ethan blinked a few times, still unsure of what to make of the situation. Was this a prank? Maybe a video recording? But no, this woman, this being, seemed too real. She was standing right there in front of him, fully naked, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. Yeah, I'm Ethan," he muttered, unsure of what else to say. "But, who are you? Why are you here?" Zara tilted her head slightly, as if confused by his confusion. She seemed entirely unbothered by her lack of clothing. "I told you already. I am Zara. I'm from another world, another galaxy, in fact. My mission was critical, but now I'm stuck here because of a malfunction in my equipment." Her words sent a chill down Ethan's spine. Another world, another galaxy. Was she an alien? Wait, hold on, you're an alien. Ethan's voice cracked slightly, a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Zara nodded, her eyes glowing softly. "Yes, and I need your help, Ethan." "Help?" Ethan paused, trying to wrap his mind around the situation. His apartment, his quiet life, had just been upended by a completely naked alien who claimed to need his help. He felt like he had stepped into some strange science fiction movie. "Why me? I'm just an average guy." Zara didn't seem to care for his self-doubt. "You are more important than you realize. Your knowledge of Earth's technology and the way you think, your problem-solving abilities, they are essential to my mission. But first, I need to fix my teleportation device." "Right. Your teleportation device," Ethan repeated, still unsure of what was happening. He glanced at her. "Well, are you going to, put some clothes on?" Zara's lips twitched in what could almost be a smile. "Clothing is not necessary for my species. We have no need for fabric or garments. Our bodies are not bound by the same social constructs as yours." Ethan opened his mouth to say something, but his mind just couldn't process everything she had said. Nothing made sense. And yet she was standing right there in front of him, her calm demeanor almost making it seem like this was all normal. "Look, I don't know what you want, but I'm just a regular guy. I can't help you with whatever intergalactic mission you're talking about." Ethan stammered, trying to take control of the situation. Zara's eyes narrowed slightly. "It's not about what you think you can do, Ethan. It's about what you can offer when the time comes. I wasn't just sent here by chance. You are connected to this mission in ways you don't even understand yet." Before Ethan could respond, there was a faint sound from outside the room, something like a soft hum, almost like a motor. Zara's eyes flicked toward the window, then back to Ethan. "It's them," she said quietly. "They've found me." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He glanced toward the window, but there was nothing. They? What's going on?" Zara's expression hardened. "They're after me, and they'll stop at nothing to capture me, Ethan. You don't have much time. If they find me here—" A loud crash interrupted her, followed by the unmistakable sound of a heavy metallic door being forced open. Ethan's pulse quickened as he realized that Zara wasn't kidding. Someone was after her. "Who are they?" Ethan demanded, now more out of fear than curiosity. Zara stepped toward him, urgency in her voice. "You need to help me get out of here. I can't stay. The device. It's my only chance." As she spoke, there was a sudden sound, louder now, almost as if something was landing outside his apartment. Then came a loud bang on his door, followed by another. Ethan's mind raced. He had no idea what was happening, but one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. Ethan's heart raced in his chest. Zara's urgent words were still ringing in his ears as he scrambled to process the situation. An alien standing in his apartment, claiming to be hunted by some unknown enemy. And now, a loud metallic noise outside, making it clear that whatever she had said wasn't just paranoia. It was real. Someone was coming for her. He took a deep breath and glanced back at Zara, her violet eyes locked on him with an intensity that made him feel as though his very thoughts were being read. "What do you want me to do?" Ethan asked, his voice shaky. He wasn't sure what he had expected when he woke up that morning, but this certainly wasn't it. Zara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped toward him, her bare feet making no sound on the floor. She was unnervingly calm, but Ethan could see the way her eyes flicked toward the door as the sounds from outside grew louder. She had to know time was running out. "I need to get my teleportation device working," she said. "I can't fix it alone. You're going to have to help me." Ethan nodded slowly, trying to make sense of the bizarre situation. "How do I help? I'm not some kind of scientist or anything." Zara smiled faintly, a flash of amusement crossing her features. "No, but you are resourceful. You think on your feet. That's what I need right now. I'll explain as we go." She moved quickly, and Ethan had no choice but to follow. He led the way into the small hallway of his apartment, glancing nervously over his shoulder. He knew that whoever was outside the door wasn't just going to knock politely. They were coming to force their way in, and that was terrifying. Zara, on the other hand, seemed almost unaffected by the growing tension in the air. As they reached his cluttered living room, Zara's eyes scanned the walls, taking in the array of tech and gadgets scattered around. The apartment was far from pristine, but it was comfortable, filled with everything Ethan needed to get by. A few unwashed dishes were stacked on the counter, and a half-eaten pizza sat in the corner. Zara didn't seem to care about any of that. Her attention was focused solely on the small metal box on the desk, an unassuming object sitting innocently among the clutter. "That's it, isn't it?" Ethan asked, pointing to the box. Zara nodded. "That's my teleportation device. I need to access it, but there's a security lock on it and I need a human interface to bypass it. That's where you come in." Ethan frowned. "You're telling me I need to hack into it, like I'd know how to do that?" Zara's gaze softened. "It's not hacking, Ethan. It's just a matter of accessing the system's protocol. I know what needs to be done, I just can't execute it alone." Ethan hesitated, unsure of what to do. He had no idea how to operate alien technology, and the idea of trying to break into some advanced intergalactic system sounded insane. But then he looked at Zara again, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding outside. "You trust me?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Zara's eyes met his, steady and unwavering. "I trust you more than you realize, but time is running out." Ethan gulped, a knot tightening in his stomach. He had no choice but to try. He stepped toward the desk, reaching for the metal box. It was cool to the touch, heavy in a way that didn't match its size. As he inspected it, he could see intricate designs etched into the surface, symbols and patterns he didn't recognize. It looked like something from a science fiction novel, not like something that could exist in his world. He turned the box over and found a small panel on the back. There, an empty slot waited. Zara stepped closer, her breath barely audible as she leaned over his shoulder. "I need you to input the code," she said softly. "Code? You mean you've got a password?" Ethan asked, his frustration creeping through. "What is this, an intergalactic safe deposit box?" Zara smiled again, her expression unbothered. "I assure you it's not as complicated as it seems. Just focus on the symbols I'll give you. Once you've seen the sequence, the lock will disengage." "Right," Ethan muttered, his hands shaking slightly as he pressed the first button. As soon as his fingers made contact, the symbols on the screen flickered to life, glowing in a language Ethan couldn't read but felt inexplicably drawn to. The symbols seemed to pulse with a life of their own, as if responding to his touch. He hesitated for a second before inputting the next symbol. As he did, the box emitted a soft hum, and the symbols shifted into new patterns. The box vibrated slightly, and for a moment, Ethan wondered if the whole thing might explode in his hands. But Zara's calm voice reassured him. "Almost there," she said. "You're doing well." His fingers danced across the panel as Zara continued to guide him. The sequence of symbols didn't make sense, but as he focused on the shapes and colors, something in his mind clicked. The final symbol appeared, and when he pressed it, the box emitted a soft, satisfying click. The screen on the device flashed brightly, and a door on the front of the box slid open, revealing an intricate series of circuits and wires. Ethan stared at it, both impressed and terrified. He had done it, but now the real challenge was ahead. "That's it," Zara whispered, her voice filled with both relief and urgency. "Now we can leave." Ethan swallowed. "Leave? We still have to." Before he could finish, a loud crash came from the hallway. The front door splintered under the impact of something heavy, and the sound of footsteps echoed through the apartment. Zara turned to him, her expression cold, almost calculating. "They're here." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He had no idea who they were, but it was clear that these people, these aliens, would stop at nothing to find Zara. She didn't give him a chance to speak. Grabbing the teleportation device, she held it up, activating a sequence of symbols on her own. A bright light filled the room once more, and Ethan felt his skin prickle with an overwhelming sense of motion. The world around him seemed to bend, twist, and stretch as the light enveloped them both. In the blink of an eye, they were no longer in his apartment. Ethan gasped as the world around him shifted. The apartment, the sound of the alien pursuit, the feeling of his own body, They all vanished. Instead, they were standing in a different place entirely. A vast, empty room with high, vaulted ceilings surrounded them, glowing with an eerie, pulsating light. The air was thick with energy and the walls seemed to pulse with a strange hum. "This is where we'll be safe," Zara said, her voice calm once again. Ethan stared at her, his mind reeling. "Where are we?" "A hidden facility," Zara explained. "It's safe for now. But we can't stay long." Ethan glanced around the room, his senses tingling as if something were watching them from the shadows. He didn't know where he was, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't just helping an alien. He was caught in something much bigger than he could ever have imagined. The chase had just begun. The room felt cold. The air, thick with the hum of energy, seemed to vibrate around Ethan, as if the very walls were alive. He stood motionless, staring at Zara, who seemed unfazed by their sudden shift in location. She was focused on something, her mind already miles ahead in the plan, no doubt. Ethan shook his head, trying to bring his thoughts together. Just a few minutes ago, he had been in his apartment, staring at his computer screen. Now, he was standing in a strange, glowing room with an alien woman who had just teleported him across dimensions. He felt the weight of it all pressing down on him, and for the first time in a long while, he had no idea what was coming next. "What is this place?" Ethan finally managed to ask, his voice sounding thin in the eerie silence of the room. Zara didn't turn to look at him, but instead moved toward one of the walls, her hand outstretched. She touched it, and the wall seemed to respond, shifting to reveal a large display of holographic symbols, all floating in midair. "This," Zara said, her voice steady, "is a safe house of sorts, a place where we can lay low for a while. We need to regroup, figure out our next move. The device is still working, but we'll need more time before it's fully functional again." Ethan didn't understand what she meant by fully functional, but he knew one thing: they were far from safe. If whatever had been chasing them had tracked them to this place, it wouldn't be long before they would be on their tail again. "But how long do we have?" Ethan asked, walking slowly to her side. "What exactly are we running from? Who are they?" Zara glanced at him, her violet eyes sharp and serious. "They are part of the Dominion, a faction that controls a large portion of the galaxy. They want the device because of its power, and they want me because I am the only one who can activate it." Ethan felt a chill spread through him. The Dominion. He had never heard of them, but the way Zara spoke made it clear they weren't a group to take lightly. The idea that a whole faction was hunting her down for an artifact she carried, it sounded like something out of one of his games, not real life. "What's so special about this device?" Ethan asked, his mind racing. "Why do they need you to activate it?" Zara hesitated for a moment, her eyes scanning the glowing symbols on the wall, as if searching for the right words. She took a deep breath, then turned back to Ethan. "The device holds the key to an ancient power. It was created by a long-forgotten race, a race far more advanced than any of us could imagine. The Dominion wants it to control the energy of entire galaxies." Ethan absorbed her words slowly, trying to make sense of it. The idea of a device that could control galactic energy was almost too much to grasp, but the urgency in Zara's voice told him this wasn't some far-off dream, it was real, and he was now tangled up in it. "So they'll stop at nothing to get it?" Ethan asked quietly, the realization hitting him hard. Zara nodded grimly. "Exactly, and we're running out of time. The longer we stay here, the more dangerous it becomes. We need to move quickly." Before Ethan could respond, a loud bang echoed through the air, causing the floor beneath their feet to shake. The faint hum of machinery stopped suddenly, replaced by a strange, unsettling silence. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't need to ask what that noise meant. They had found them. Whoever or whatever had been chasing them was here. "We don't have much time," Zara said, her voice tense as she moved toward a nearby door. The moment she opened it, she stepped into another room, motioning for Ethan to follow. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked, his legs moving on autopilot as he rushed to keep up. "We're going to activate the secondary teleportation system," Zara said without looking back. "It'll take us somewhere else, somewhere safe." Ethan's mind was still reeling from the events of the last few hours. He had gone from sitting in his room playing video games to running from an alien faction that wanted to control the galaxy. And now Zara was leading him through strange, high-tech corridors, all while trying to escape whoever was after them. His heart raced as he followed her, but deep down, something told him this wasn't the end of their problems. They were only just beginning. They arrived at a large chamber filled with unfamiliar machinery. There were no windows here, just walls lined with strange consoles and terminals. At the center of the room was another device, much larger than the first, and it looked far more complex. It hummed with energy, glowing a soft blue that cast eerie shadows around the room. Zara approached the console at the center of the room, tapping a few buttons with quick, precise movements. The device before them began to power up, its lights flickering as it came to life. "This will take us to a hidden base, deep within the mining colonies on Ares IV," Zara said, her voice steady but urgent. "There we can regroup and plan our next move." Ethan wasn't sure what he was expecting, but he wasn't sure if a mining colony was any safer than where they were now. "How far is this base?" he asked, trying to keep his nerves under control. "A few light years. It will be far enough to get us out of their reach for now." As Zara continued to work on the console, the air around them began to crackle with energy. Ethan felt a strange sensation, a pressure building in his chest as though the room itself was expanding. Suddenly, a loud crash from the hallway outside made him jump. The door to the chamber shuddered under the force, and the faint sound of footsteps could be heard in the distance. "They've breached the outer defenses," Zara said calmly. "We don't have much time." Ethan's stomach dropped. He had no idea what kind of forces they were up against, but the sound of that door breaking through was enough to tell him that things were escalating quickly. The idea of running had never seemed so real to him before. "Zara, hurry up," he urged, his voice tight with panic. "We can't stay here." "I'm almost done," Zara replied, her hands moving over the console with practiced ease. "Just one more adjustment." The tension in the air was unbearable. Ethan's heart raced, each second feeling like an eternity. He looked at the door, knowing that it wouldn't be long before they were surrounded. His mind flashed to the Dominion, the powerful alien faction that had been hunting them, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Finally, Zara pressed a final button on the console, and the room was filled with a blinding light. Ethan barely had time to react before the ground beneath his feet seemed to vanish. He felt the strange sensation again, like being pulled through a tight tunnel, and the world around him spun. The air shifted, and his body tingled with energy. For a split second, he couldn't tell if his body was moving or if he was simply suspended in the air. And then, as quickly as it had started, the sensation stopped. Ethan stumbled forward, his hands bracing against the nearest wall. When he looked up, he found himself standing in a completely new place, a dark, cold environment that looked nothing like Earth. A vast cavern stretched out before him, with glowing blue crystals lining the walls. The ceiling was so high, it seemed to disappear into the darkness above. The floor was uneven, covered in strange markings, and the air smelled of dust and metal. "This is Ares IV," Zara said quietly, walking ahead of him. "It's not much, but it's hidden, and for now it will keep us safe." Ethan glanced around, still trying to take everything in. The underground base was unlike anything he had ever seen. It felt alien, foreign in every sense of the word, and though they were technically safe for now, he couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still to come. "Now what?" Ethan asked, his voice uncertain. "Now we wait," Zara said, her tone resolute, "and we prepare." The Dominion won't stop until they have what they want. Ethan swallowed hard. He had never imagined that his quiet, ordinary life would be turned upside down in such a way. But as Zara led him deeper into the base, he realized that this was only the beginning. The real fight was just starting. The cold air of Ares' IV enveloped Ethan as he followed Zara deeper into the underground base. The dim glow of the blue crystals reflected off the metal walls, casting long shadows that seemed to shift and move with every step they took. Despite the strange beauty of the place, there was no comfort in it. The silence was heavy, almost oppressive, as though the very atmosphere was holding its breath. Ethan glanced around at the barren surroundings, his mind still reeling from the chaotic series of events that had led them here. Just hours ago, he had been playing video games in his small apartment, living his simple, uneventful life. Now he was in an alien world, running for his life with a woman who claimed to be the key to galactic power. Nothing about this felt real. Zara, however, seemed unfazed by their surroundings. She moved with purpose, her steps sure and steady as she navigated through the labyrinth of corridors. It was clear to Ethan that this wasn't her first time here. She had a quiet confidence as though she belonged in this place, even if it was hidden deep within the minds of Ares IV. "We need to get to the control room," Zara said, her voice low but commanding. "There's a communication network here. We'll use it to reach my allies." Ethan nodded, his mind still trying to catch up with the situation. Allies. Did Zara have friends out there? Were there others fighting against the Dominion? It was hard to believe that there was a whole resistance when everything felt so fragile. "What happens next?" Ethan asked, the words slipping out before he could stop them. He had never been one for big decisions or thinking ahead, but now he found himself wondering about the bigger picture. Zara glanced at him, her violet eyes sharp and serious. "We prepare. The Dominion won't stop until they get the artifact, but for now we're safe here. We have time to plan our next move." Ethan didn't feel safe. Not really. The threat of the Dominion still loomed over them like a dark cloud, and he couldn't shake the feeling that at any moment their enemies would find them. He had seen the destruction they were capable of. He had seen the look in Zara's eyes when she spoke about them, a look that made it clear she wasn't just running from them. She was fighting for something far bigger than herself. They reached the control room, and Zara immediately began working with the consoles. Ethan stood off to the side, watching as she typed in a series of commands with practiced ease. The screens flickered to life, and a series of maps and diagrams appeared, all showing various points across the galaxy. A network of ships, planets, and bases. Zara didn't look up as she worked, but Ethan could see the determination in her movements. "What are we looking at?" Ethan asked, trying to make sense of the screens. There were so many lines, so many numbers. It was like trying to read a foreign language. "I'm checking in with the others," Zara explained. "If they're still alive, they'll be able to help us. The Dominion has a stronghold on a few key locations, but we still have resources in places they don't control. We just have to reach them." Ethan could feel the tension building in the room. They were trying to reach out to her allies, but what if they could? What if the Dominion had already found them? What if this was all for nothing? His thoughts were interrupted by a sharp beep from one of the screens. Zara's eyes flicked to it, and for the first time Ethan saw a flicker of hope in her expression. "They're still out there," Zara said quietly. "We have a chance." Ethan's heart gave a small leap of relief. For the first time since everything had started, he felt like they might have a chance at this. They weren't alone, after all. There were others out there fighting the same fight. They just needed to reach them. Zara continued to type, her focus unwavering as she sent out a signal. The screens flickered again, and a few moments later, another beep sounded. This time, the screen displayed a message, coordinates, a plan, and a confirmation that the resistance was ready to make their move. "We have our next destination," Zara said, turning to face Ethan. "It's a long shot, but it's our best chance." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of the decision settling in. This was it. This was the moment that would define everything. If they succeeded, they could turn the tide against the Dominion. If they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. The pressure felt suffocating, but there was no turning back now. "Let's go," Ethan said, his voice more determined than he expected. He wasn't sure where this courage was coming from, but it didn't matter. He was in this now, for better or worse. Zara gave him a brief, almost approving glance before she turned back to the console. She typed in a final command, and the room seemed to shift again. The lights flickered and the hum of the bass intensified. The next step was in motion. They made their way back down the narrow hallways, moving quickly but quietly. The deeper they went into the base, the darker it became. The walls seemed to close in on them, the eerie blue light barely illuminating their path. The silence felt suffocating, but it was the kind of silence that came before a storm. Ethan couldn't help but glance around, feeling the weight of every corner, every shadow. Something was off. The closer they got to the landing bay, the more tense the air became. It was as though the base itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. When they reached the landing bay, Zara stopped in her tracks. She turned to face Ethan, her expression hardening. "Stay close," she warned, her voice sharp. Ethan nodded, instinctively stepping closer. His senses were on high alert now, his mind racing. He had no idea what they were walking into, but he knew it couldn't be good. As they entered the landing bay, the sight that greeted them was both reassuring and terrifying. A small fleet of ships was waiting, ready to launch. There were enough to give them a fighting chance, but not nearly enough to take on the full might of the Dominion. Still, it was all they had. Zara turned to him, her expression more serious than ever. "We're about to face the most dangerous part of this mission. I need you to stay focused. Don't let your guard down." "I won't," Ethan promised, his voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. He had come this far, and he wasn't going to back down now. Zara moved quickly, her eyes scanning the room. She gave a few short commands to the crew, and they began preparing for takeoff. Ethan followed her, his mind still racing as he tried to prepare himself for whatever was coming next. The Dominion was waiting, and they weren't going to let Zara and her allies slip away easily. The ship's engines hummed to life, and Ethan felt the familiar sensation of the ground shifting beneath his feet. He was about to leave the only safe place they had, and he knew that they were headed straight into the heart of enemy territory. As the ship ascended, leaving Ares IV behind, Ethan's mind raced. He had no idea how this was going to end. But one thing was certain, it wasn't going to be easy. They were going to face unimaginable odds, but if there was one thing that had become clear in all of this, it was that the fight was worth it. The galaxy, Zara's people, and even Earth, everything was at stake. And now he was part of it. Whether he liked it or not, he was in this battle for the long haul.